Well, this is it. The Perfect Indicative, Chapter 25. This is the last chapter on the indicative in mounts, and you have done well to get to this point. So, time to celebrate here. And of all the tense forms that we've looked at, I think perfect is the easiest to identify, and we'll see why here. But first, think about the tense forms and how verbs in Greek, a single word, can specify so much meaning in just a compact and economic form. Consider this verb agapao again in the translations with the various tense forms and voice combinations. Today we'll look at the perfect. So perfect active, agapeka, agapemai, I have loved, I have been loved, agapeka, agapemai. The forms in the lexicon, again, the present is the lexical form, and then future aorist perfect active and middle, and then perfect middle passive aorist passive. There are three keys, I think, to identifying the perfect, and the first is reduplication. There is a reduplication of the initial consonant and vowel, or a form, a vowel form at least, in the initial syllables of the word. So instead of the augment that you have become familiar with the imperfect and aorist tense forms, now we have reduplication. It's still at the beginning of a word, but it's different than the augment, and so it makes an easy identification. We've thought about tense formatives already. Do you remember the first aorist active? Saw. First aorist passive. They. Second aorist passive. Just the eta. Future passive. First future passive, theis, and then a. So these combinations of tense formatives, well, in the perfect, it's ka, kappa, alpha, in the active. That leads us to think about connecting vowels. Since in the first perfect, the kappa, alpha combination ends in a vowel, and it's followed by a connecting vowel, there's no need for a connecting vowel, so to speak. Or normally a tense form is followed by a connecting vowel. There's no need for one since there's already an alpha, and the primary active personal endings just attach right to that tense formative. There's no need for a connecting vowel because the alpha acts as a connecting vowel. So here are the components. Reduplication. The lambda epsilon here is the reduplication of lu, which is here the perfect active tense stem. Now, the whole stem doesn't reduplicate all the time, but it's just the first two letters, normally the consonant, first consonant, and vowel. Not always in identical reduplication, but you'll catch the hang of it as it goes here. The tense formative ka in men. Lalu common, lalu common. Remember the master personal ending chart, and the perfect uses the primary tense forms. Normally the perfect is thought of as a completed action in the past with abiding effects to the present. You see that in mounts, and that's the typical way it's described. Though it's thought to represent an action completed in the past, it uses primary tense forms because it doesn't use the typical augment of secondary tense forms, the aorist or the imperfect. So it uses primary tense forms. So make sure that you note that. If you see reduplication, just be thinking automatically primary tense forms. So here's a paradigm of the perfect active indicative. Again, leluka. See the tense formative all the way through, primary personal endings, and very normal in its patterns. There are no nuances. Components of the perfect middle passive, again, reduplication. Perfect middle passive tense stem, again, primary middle or passive endings. You remember in the pattern of primary middle passive endings, my, psi, tie, methasitha, untie. In the second singular psi, the sigma would often drop out. There would be a lengthening of the alpha to an eta, the iota would subscript, and it would be a. But that does not occur with the perfect middle passive. It keeps the normal personal ending, psi. This leads us to the grand finale of the master verb chart. Here it is. Great celebration for you. If you can reproduce this in your mind, go out for dinner tonight. If you're able just to come close, go out for dessert. Do something to celebrate. Get this down either way. This you will have to know. And it will come to you, especially if you can just keep in mind the augments at first, or the reduplication patterns, the tense formatives. If you have that, you're going to be a ways down the road. Then make sure that you have the tense stem. You can know that, for instance, the imperfect uses the present tense stem. We need to know that. The other combinations you can see here. And make sure you have these down. Finally, the vocab starter. Aiteo. When I see aiteo, I think of the word height. Someone asking, how tall are you? They're demanding, how tall are you? Someone's really tall. Malang means more or rather. There's a city in Indonesia, Malang, on the island of Java, quite a large city, and I think of world missions, and they need more missionaries there rather than perhaps other places. Malang. Malang. Martureo, a martyr, I testify or I witness. Martureo. Again, the more creative you can be with your vocab, the more likely you will be to remember it and to have it down. Word pictures, ideas that can help you to memorize words. That's the perfect, and that is all of the indicative. Again, good job. We start into participles next, and that will be another round of work for us. But make sure you get the perfect down and the indicatives.